Welcome to Astonished. I am Jeremy Hansen, your host, and today I want to take a little bit of time to stroll down memory lane. We don't do this very often anymore, and I find that we get to be too busy for our own goods and we can't remember the wonderful things that our life used to be like. I'm talking about pre-bills. I'm talking about, as a kid, the fun things that you went and did. Now, when I was a kid, family was very important to us. Our cousins came around, aunt and uncles, and it was a dividing point in my life because my best friend at the time, Sam, my cousin Sam, he was a few years younger than me, but me and him went on some adventures. Some of the things that we did, grown men today would consider adventures. Now, we did, from time to time, get our butts paddled and things like that. A couple of examples was my uncle happened to be in the military, and he had these little parachutes that they would drop food from out of planes and helicopters. And we thought it was a good idea to jump out of the second story of my cousin Sam's house. Well, at least he did, because he went first. And after I saw what happened, I didn't go. Other things, we used to climb 90, 100-foot pine trees. You got to keep in mind, we were 10, 11, 12, him 9 years old at the time. Our mothers would come home and they'd look up there and you could see the dread, the fear in their face that we were doing something. But to us, it was just great. We'd go down in the woods. We'd go to lakes. We had family camping trips. We would go get sticks and make walking sticks. We would climb silos. We would go do all these wonderful things. And anything we could imagine, we would try. We would do. It was a wonderful time to live. At this particular time, I was 11, 12 years old, and my cousin was 8 or 9 years old. And we did what we usually did. We would tell our mom, and it could be my mom, Susan, it could be his mom, Linda. We would tell them we were going to do something, and usually we would leave out the dangerous parts. We would just go be kids. Boys will be boys. And we did exactly that. This particular day, we were about mid-June, maybe third week of June, and we decided that we were bored. We had climbed all the trees in our yard. We had got into all the mischief that we could in that area. So we're like, hey, let's get on our bikes. Let's pedal down to Jersey Valley. Okay, Jersey Valley, Vernon County, Wisconsin, completely surrounded with woods, and right outside of the woods, farming land. It's a big spring-fed clear, crystal clear water lake. People would come down on the one side. There was a parking area. There was a little beach. There was a man-made dam there. But on the back side was a small trout stream that rolled out of the back, like this bumbling brook that came out the back side. And it was on a farmer's land on the back side. It was about 6, 7 miles from our house, as the road was. So we told my mother that day, Susan, hey, we're going to go for a little bike ride. And we grabbed our fish poles. She didn't know where we were going. And if we would have told her, we probably wouldn't have been able to go. But we jumped on our bikes and we started pedaling. Now for kids, this was a great adventure. All we did was grabbed a couple hooks. We grabbed our fish poles. We grabbed our bikes and we were gone because we knew on the backside of Jersey Valley, there were a bunch of little brook trout. Best thing you could eat ever. And what's better for young boys than to be by a freshwater stream in the middle of the woods, nobody to bother you. You could do anything you want. So we start pedaling. And I remember it was funny because some of our neighbors had mean dogs back in the day. And I don't know, kids don't do that much today because the world has become so scary. You're afraid to let your children ride a bike down a highway and then get off on a back road and then another back road and the gravel road, finally to get to your destination. It just wouldn't happen today. But as we're driving, I remember my cousin Sam trying to keep up with me. He was a few years younger than me, of course. But I remember the dogs coming out and us fighting through the dogs and this super adventure that we were going to have and we were going to remember. And one that we couldn't tell anybody about because we had lied to my mother about where we were going. It was a little white lie. It wasn't a big lie. It was just a little white lie. So we go down, and it's just this beautiful setting. You can hear, that's dairyland up there. You can hear the cows moo. You can smell fresh alfalfa cut laying on the ground. The signs that we would see, these smells that we would incur on our way down there. I don't remember them except to say it was some of the best smells times signs in my life. And we go down this little gravel road after fighting the dogs, after seemed like 100 years of pedaling to get there, because this is hill country, so you're going up and down hills. We get down there and it is just glorious. It's green everywhere. The leaves are out in, their full splendor. There's birds and there's songbirds and there's fish, and you could see them in this clear creek. About the perfect temperature, about 75, 76 degrees. And we get down there and we start fishing. And we're having fun. We're having a blast. There's no adults ruining our fun down there. We're tromping in the mud and we're tromping in the high grass, and we're not worried about anything. We're just having fun being kids. And we're catching brook trout. We're having a grand time. Now, even though I was only 11 or 12 years old and my cousin was 8 or 9, we had been in the woods a lot. We had been out in the country a lot. We knew what was normal. We knew what wasn't normal. We knew what rattlesnakes were. We knew which places to stay away from. We were both good swimmers. We could take care of ourselves at that point. And we're sitting there and we're fishing, and we hear this guttural growl. We're like, that's weird. We know there's a bear once in a while that will come through here. Not a big deal. It's something though. And I always wonder if this encounter that we had, that was really a non-encounter, if it really fueled the rest of our lives. I stayed in Wisconsin until I was about 33, 34 years old, and I moved to the Ozark Mountains, one of the wildest places in the lower 48. My cousin, on the other hand, he moved to the Wrangell Narrows in Alaska and continues to live there in the islands on this day. So it makes me wonder, with all the crazy adventures we had, including this one, including this growl that both of us remember. We were sitting there and we were fishing and we heard some growls a ways away. And it really didn't bother us because we're in a valley. We're in this real cut ravine. Some people would almost call it a canyon if you were in Arizona. But it was the backside of a spring-fed freshwater lake where we're sitting there trout fishing. Steep hills on both sides, but covered in trees. We can see the brook in the knee-high grass all the way to the lake. So we're not too worried about the first growls. And the growl got a little closer, and it got a little closer until we would have the estimation today that it was probably 50 yards away. And there was this low, guttural, just insane growl that we had never heard before. Keep in mind, we've heard all manner of animals in the woods, and we knew that it was something. The hair on the back of your neck stood up when it did this growl. And we're sitting there, and we're like, what do we do? Talking back with our back and forth. And we all thought, we go, hey. And it sounded, we're on the side of this hill that's a fairly big hill. And we hear what sounds like a Volkswagen rolling down the side of the hill, brush crashing, trees coming down. It scared both of us, 10 feet tall and bulletproof young men, that we climbed this silver maple tree that we were fishing by. It went up about 4 or 5 feet and then sprouted. And we climbed to the top of that thing, and we didn't know what to do. We had ridden our bikes down there. And when we got up there, we didn't have any clue what to do. We thought, is it a bear? What is it? Whatever just came down the hill had to have been 2,000 pounds. And I remember it like it was yesterday. The growling, this weird guttural growl, came a couple times again. And we're sitting in the tree, and we can see, about 40 yards from us, we can see these little bitty trees swaying back and forth 7, 8 feet from side to side, and nobody else is down there. There's no humans on the backside of Jersey Valley, except if you're coming down there to go trout fishing. Like I said, it was private land. It was a farmer's land at that time. And we stayed in that tree for probably 2 hours, sitting there debating on what do we do? Because if it is a bear, when we get down and we get on our bikes, well, a bear can outrun our bike. What if it's something that's not a bear? And we didn't really even entertain that idea because we were scared to death. Back then, we didn't have cell phones. We couldn't call mom. So we waited about 2 hours. We hadn't heard anything in probably an hour and 20 minutes. And by this time, we knew which way the creek went. We knew how the land was underneath the foliage. We knew all of that. So we knew about where something had to be. And we got down and we got our fishing poles. And you could pick right or left. If you picked right and you went up the road, we could circle back around, go through a little town of Caston and come back to our house between Caston and Westby. Or we could go to the left where we had actually heard whatever it was that was there, and it was shorter to the house, and that's the way that we took because we were so afraid of two things. One, being 11 or 12 and 8 or 9, we were afraid that we were there too long and that we had a bike ride back home, and we were afraid of the wrath of mom. And the other thing what we were afraid of, we didn't know what type of animal had came down, broke trees that were 5 inches in diameter, just like twigs, just bam. We didn't know what was making that guttural growl. And I remember when we left and we chose left and we went up and there was this house there. And there was a dog that would always come out to meet you, to nip at your ankles as you went by because he was there when we came down. And we come up the road and there he was. German Shepherd sitting at the house. He wouldn't come out. He didn't come out to greet us. He didn't come out to growl at us. He didn't come out to nip at our ankles. And he was probably 300 or 400 yards from where this animal had ran down the hill, busting these branches and brambles and that terrible, awful guttural growl. And we got home and we kind of took it easy. I remember when we were going down the highway, we kind of stopped from pedaling our bikes and we pushed it and we talked about it. And we never said anything to anybody because we were afraid of getting in trouble. And by the time we got home, mom asked us, hey, where have you guys been? Well, we had been catching the trout. We had been catching brook trout. Our fingers smelled like fish. So, hey, we you know what? We lost track of time. We were having a great time. We went fishing, blah, 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 blah. She thought we were at a pond, but we weren't. Enough said. So years later, I'm sitting here and I'm looking up things for another podcast that I do. And I see about 89, 1990 and 1991 is the last time that people had spotted Sasquatch in Vernon County around Jersey Valley Lake, Wisconsin. And I wonder, and I thought to myself, when we were sitting there and we heard that guttural growl, I can remember the smell to this day. I can remember this urine-saturated dead animal smell. My cousin could remember it too. I think that was part of the experience of our hair standing up on the back of our necks. You could smell that. And then as soon as that growl came, everything else went away because now we knew it wasn't some dead animal sitting in the bushes, that it was an actual living, breathing animal. And I wonder, we never saw the animal. We only heard the animal. We saw the broken branches. We heard and saw the trees moving as it came down the hill. And when I say it sounded like a Volkswagen being pushed down the hill, it was the worst sound imaginable that you could ever hear. And I wonder to this day, do you think that it was Sasquatch, or do you think that it was a small 350, 400-pound Mirandering black bear? I've been around black bear. I've seen black bear in the woods, and they don't smell like that. I've never heard them have a guttural growl like we've seen. And I'd never seen a bear in real life that had an emotional temper tantrum. And I swear that's what it had to be coming running down the hill. And this is just one of many stories of me and my cousin, Jeremy and Sam, doing the things that they weren't supposed to. But as 11 and 12-year-olds, do you think anybody would have believed us? looking back at it now. Even to this day, people are going to say, well, you guys were only 11 or 12. You don't know what you're talking about. And now the more that I look into it, the more history that I see, I truly believe that we had an encounter with a real Sasquatch. And that's the show for today. Thanks for joining. I'll have another one coming up soon about Sam and I lying about going to bed, sneaking out in the middle of the night in a huge thunderstorm, going out on Delavan Lake, Wisconsin in a canoe just so we could go walleye fishing. It'll be a good one. Thanks, folks.